Hey everyone, Mr. Sujano here, your source for gaming, tech, emulation, and open source news. Let's get started. Alright, to kick things off, we're talking about something that I wouldn't necessarily recommend. This is called GOG Player Emulator, and it's just popped up on the Google Play Store. I've received a bunch of messages asking me about this one. So in the description of that app, it says, log into your GOG account and start playing your favorite games right from your phone or tablet. Much like PPSSPP and other emulators, this app allows you to run PC games from your GOG library on your Android device. So right off the bat, I've got more questions than answers based on this description alone. I mean, much like PPSSPP and other emulators, from what I know, PPSSPP does not allow you to log into GOG and play PC games from your GOG library on your Android device. I don't know what they're trying to say here. The developers even went as far as to create a post over on Reddit Emulation on Android, and they titled it New App for Playing GOG Games on Android. They're saying that Fallout 1, Fallout 2 work, and more to come. They say they're looking for testers here, and I wouldn't recommend being a tester for this or even using it in the first place. As for how this app works, they say it emulates Windows along with x86 code, but in a very thin layer as opposed to WinLater. I would recommend probably just using WinLater instead of this. Fortunately, the post has been logged, and it does seem that a lot of people recognize something right off the bat. But if you haven't seen this post over on Reddit Emulation on Android and you wanted to learn more about it, like everything we talk about, links are in the description below right at the bottom. I don't hide my sources. And I would recommend going through the comments here and kind of seeing the rationale as to why I don't trust this app. And speaking about not recommending stuff, next up we're talking about Ark Survival Evolved. Now this game was released back in 2017. Overall on Steam it's got a very positive review score, with recent reviews being mixed. And someone with over 35,000 hours in this game has left it a negative review and also asked for a refund. So here's the review that's been gaining quite a bit of attention online and generating quite a bit of chatter, and understandably so. They say, I have enjoyed Ark for 35,000 hours, one of my favorite games to play with friends and family. I ran a ASM server with mods for years until today. Nothing works anymore. Server doesn't match, mods don't work. Server doesn't match, mods don't work, and all of this is to force us to ASA. I have that game as well, and it sucks. That is why we went back to ASE, and now you have managed to screw that also. You had something great, hope you don't choke on your greed. How do I get a refund? And for those who may or may not be aware, ASA and ASE stand for Subscribe to Mr. Sujano, or Ark Survival Ascended and Ark Survival Evolved. Now that review is not standalone in terms of its viewpoints here. There's a review directly underneath it, and this person has almost 1,000 hours in the game. And they say here, this is or was a great game, but the publisher decided to deliberately kill the game twice in order to waste money on a failed gamble, while simultaneously lying about their follow-up games. Do not buy. This game is abandoned and will only be touched in order to make playing it more annoying for the existing player base. Do not buy it at this point in time. Now, if you do the math on 35,000 hours, it translates to roughly a little bit over 4 years, which I think is crazy. That's a lot of time to have up and running, and I'm assuming they had the game up and running for server reasons. Anyways here, let me know your thoughts about Ark Survival Evolved and whether or not this person should get a refund. I tried to get a refund for GTA 5 when they broke compatibility with Linux, and unfortunately I was declined, and I tried multiple times. I'm assuming with 35,000 hours they are not getting a refund. But moving on from that, and next up we're shifting from something negative to something arguably very positive, well, depending on who you ask. We're talking about the Ship of Arcinian, which is the unofficial Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time PC port, and it just got a brand new update. So at the time of filming, Blair Echo 9.0.4 is the latest update, which does have some fixes. Blair Delta version 9.0.3 was also just released on the exact same day. And this is the first release since April. So in this update, there's a bunch of fixes and tweaks and features. In terms of new features, they've added entrance shuffle to check availability. They've removed all support for previous version randomizer files. The files will be renamed and the user notified if present on startup. and it also notifies user when trying to use a spoiler log from an old version and prevents parsing. And skip feeding Jabu is now an option on Rando or for Rando. Now, as for tweaks, there's a lot in here, but they've improved the background opacity of docked item tracker windows, various hint improvements. Check tracker now properly hides excluded locations. Ivan the Fairy can pick up Deku seeds. They've added in cutscene skips and even more. I would say this is a pretty big update. Next up, we're quickly talking about Xbox, and if you're an Xbox insider, you might like this update here. Now available for Xbox insiders, your cross-device play history and easier access to your cloud-playable console games on PC. In terms of big updates, I would say this is not a big update at all, but considering they've lost a bunch of staff, I'm wondering if this is the best they can do at this point in time. Who knows? I might be wrong with that. Anyways, here, they say they've added a cloud-playable filter, so you can filter games that are playable in the cloud. And also they've enabled play history. But moving on from that and not opening that can of worms at all, next up here we're talking about Resident Evil 2, and there seems to be a brand new arcade shooter that might have a lot of people excited. It's called Resident Evil 2 Deadshot. IGN has some footage of this, and to me this looks extremely interesting. There is a cabinet already available, and I'm curious to see if this expands and becomes more readily available in other countries. IGN is saying it's now playable at Namco Funscape in the UK, and if you're interested in this and wanted to learn more about it, as well as watch the video of this game in action, I recommend checking out that IGN article, and again, like everything we talk about, links are in the description below. And speaking about surprising stuff, next up we're talking about Forza Horizon 5 on the PS5. And it's being reported here that Forza Horizon 5 is 2025's top new PS5 game. It's sold more than Monster Hunter Wilds. Now, if I'm not mistaken, a while back, or really not too long ago, we were talking about a rumor that was circling around about the future of the Forza series. How the rumor stated Forza Motorsport was basically scrapped moving forward and Forza Horizon was the main focus. And if this is true, and if the rumor turns out to be true, I can absolutely see why. This to me is extremely impressive for Forza Horizon selling more than Monster Hunter Wilds in 2025 on the PS5. But I am curious to hear your thoughts on the matter, and let me know too about Claire Obscure Expedition 33, which is sitting at 1.3 million units sold. I'm hoping here that Claire Expedition 33 continues to sell well and maybe even makes its way up the list here to one of the top sellers. I can't see it usurp Monster Hunter Wilds or anything like that, but I'm still shocked at Forza Horizon 5. And fun fact here, and it's worth pointing out, they say that the most recent sale for Forza, 25% off, was what was driving it past that 3 million units sold mark. And I would say here from an observation, I guess this is just one game in one situation, but console exclusives may not be the most lucrative path for developers to take. Next up, I've got a quick update here about Once Were Nerd. Now, we had talked about this situation with this YouTuber that was widely reported on the internet, where this YouTuber is now facing, I guess, fines and possible jail time for reviewing retro handhelds. But that might not be the full story. So a brand new video has popped up, and I'm pretty sure that this is a lawyer. I'm using auto-translate in the video because I don't speak Italian. But based on what they're saying here, there are multiple reasons that were not necessarily disclosed in the video. So one of the big reasons here is that I guess Once Were Nerd were hosting ROM files and BIOS files. The lawyer takes a look at one of the descriptions of the videos, and I guess it says ROMs and BIOS, and there's a link, and the link goes to Once Were Nerd's site. So the lawyer says that the prosecutor may see this as Once Were Nerd hosting ROM and BIOS files and distributing them. Furthermore, in terms of distribution, it seems as if Once Were Nerd may have been selling consoles with ROMs included on microSD cards. Possible consoles that they received to review and then resold them with games packed onto a micro SD card. So that may be the big problem, is selling ROMs as well as distributing them based on the links pointing to their website. I don't know here, I'm not a legal expert, I'm just following this video and what they're saying. So we're going to have to wait and see moving forward if any more information comes to light about the entire Once Were Nerd situation, and I'm very curious to see what happens. On a side note here, this person says that RetroArch is completely legal and emulation is also legal. So I would say at the very least here, at least this is more confirmation that emulation is absolutely fine. If you are interested in learning more about this, I'd recommend checking out the video. And again, like everything we talk about, links are in the description below. I'm hoping here that auto-translate was accurate. There's probably some inaccuracies, but I found it very interesting. And speaking about unfortunate stuff, next up we're talking about rose-colored gaming. Now, if you're not familiar with rose-colored gaming, this was a place to pick up a whole bunch of retro stuff, modded stuff, and even more. And unfortunately, it seems they are closing their doors after around 13 years. So here's their announcement. After nearly 14 years, Rose-Colored Gaming is shutting down. A huge thank you to everyone who has supported us. It's been a wild trip, but circumstances that are out of our control have dictated that it's time to move on. All of our remaining inventory will be going to Zed Labs in the UK within the next few weeks. We'll still be in the shop answering customer service emails and such for the next month or so while we finish liquidating assets. But moving on, and next up we're talking about the opposite of shutting down and something just starting up, and BlazBlue Entropy Effect has just launched on mobile. If you're interested in this game, it's a very interesting game overall. It is now available and it's already got over 10,000 downloads. Now, if you hear BlazBlue and immediately think fighting game, you would be correct, but not in this case. BlazBlue Entropy Effect is not necessarily a strict fighting game. It is a pretty awesome game overall, and it's got a very positive review score on Steam. And speaking about mobile stuff, next up here we're talking about mobile phones and foldable phones. Now, in yesterday's video, we talked about the upcoming Galaxy Z Fold 7 and how it was rated for 500,000 folds. And this was a huge gain for Samsung, but it paled in comparison to something like OnePlus, which was rated for 1 million folds. Anyways here, it seems that 64% of people say no thanks to foldable smartphones. Now, I'm not going to lie, I am curious to hear your thoughts on the matter in terms of smartphones and foldables or not. For me personally, I've tried them out. They're not for me for a number of different reasons. One being I like to go camping and I'd be worried about getting dirt and scratching the screen or ruining the hinges and all of that stuff that comes along with it. And plus more moving parts means more potential for them to break. And I use a smartphone quite a bit. But anyways here, it seems that I'm not necessarily in the minority here looking at these results. And Gen Z, Millennials, Gen X, and Boomers seem to be all relatively similar, with Millennials being the group that is most willing to try out foldables. Boomers seem to be the group with the highest resistance to foldable smartphones at 67% saying no, they're not considering using them. And all of the results were at least 60% or over, with people saying no. And speaking about stuff that people are saying no to, next up we're talking about kind of the exact opposite, something that a lot of people are saying yes to, and that's the Nintendo Switch 2. I'm in the minority here by saying no to a Nintendo Switch 2. But anyways here, taking a look, Nintendo has unveiled a brand new package coming soon. It is just featuring the base Switch 2, but there will be a Pokemon bundle. Now in Canada, the MSRP on this Nintendo Switch 2 and Pokemon Legends said a bundle, which is going on sale October 16th, is $700. Or $699.99 if you wanted to be specific. It's worth noting here that this game bundle does not include a physical game. It's the console and a game download. And continuing to speak about Pokemon and release dates, next up we're talking about Pokemon Champions. And Pokemon Champions was showcased yesterday with a release date of 2026. And this will be for both the Switch 2 as well as mobile. I have a hunch that this game is going to be pretty popular, and I guess it's not just for the Switch 2, it's also for the original Switch. And I'll say I'm glad to see stuff still hitting the original Switch and Nintendo not completely abandoning it just yet. And speaking about games releasing, how about games unreleasing per se? This is kind of an interesting situation with Splitgate 2. So Splitgate 2 on Steam right now has a mixed overall review score. It was released in May of this year. And this game is headed back to beta. So they put up a brand new post on their community page titled "Building the Splitgate You Deserve." We believe in Splitgate 2. This game means everything to us. It's been in our life for almost 10 years. We've heard your feedback and we agree with you. We launched too early. So we're going back to beta. The game is still going to be available. They are still going to be delivering Chapter 3, and they say we'll be heads down until early next year, rebuilding major parts of the game to capture the spirit of what made Splitgate special. So I would say there's two ways of looking at this, the positive way and the negative way. The positive way, the developers are listening to the community and trying to do something about it. Or not trying, actually doing something about it, and not just releasing fluff patches and verbiage to help ease the tension and the negative opinions of the game. And the negative way of looking at this is the game was released too early, and in my opinion, we see that all too often. Now, I don't know about you, and this is my opinion, it might be a hot take, but I think there are some games out there that release early just to get some money, and then release fixes and updates for it as time goes on, almost like an early access that's not really an early access, if you get what I'm saying. Let me know your thoughts about that in the comments below. But anyways, here I would say at least Splitgate 2 is actively trying to do something to make things better for gamers and the game in general. And speaking about games, next up we're talking about one that I think caught a lot of people by surprise. If you're a fan of Hellraiser, you might be a fan of this announcement here. There was an announcement trailer yesterday, and it's titled Clive Barker's Hellraiser Revival. And this one doesn't have a release date just yet, but it will be headed to Steam, PlayStation, and Xbox. And it can already be wishlisted on Steam. And speaking about release dates, next up we're talking about Borderlands 4 on Nintendo Switch 2. And Randy Pitchford has confirmed that Borderlands 4 will be releasing on October 3rd for the Switch 2. Now, on top of that, Randy has revealed some details surrounding the game. Randy says it's a big game. There will be a download even for physical copies, so the full game will not be on a cartridge. And secondly here, and this is a big one in terms of performance, it was important to us to not cut anything and to support crossplay with other platforms. So no, it'll be mostly around 30 FPS with some dips in some intense moments, heavy combats, or if hosting a multiplayer game in handheld mode. So there you have it. Borderlands 4 will be available on October 3rd for the Switch 2. It will require some sort of online connection to download the full game because the full game will not be on a cartridge. And it'll mostly run at 30 frames per second. And speaking about storage, next up here we're talking about something the average person probably is not in the market for, but would like to have. And that's a brand new SSD here. That's 245 terabytes. Kioxia unveiled it. Tom's Hardware has you covered for the full specifications here, but I guess the actual storage number is 245.76 terabytes. I wish I had that much space to just throw files in. I don't even know if I could fill up 245 terabytes. But I imagine I could find stuff to fill the drive. I don't know. Let me know your thoughts about that one. Would you want 245 terabytes in your PC? And last up here, we're talking about Atari 2600 emulation with Gopher2600, which is an Atari 2600 emulator written in Go. Anyways, Gopher2600 just got a brand new update with some nice new features. So at the time of filming, version 0.50.0 is the latest update. And with this update, they say mouse input controls both paddles in a paddle pair. This fixes Astroblast, which only works with a second paddle. Automatic controller selection now considers meta information in file name. And joystick and gamepad emulation do not allow impossible positions. On top of that, there's improved superchip detection, a whole bunch of bug fixes, and even more. I would say this is a pretty big update. But anyways, that is all I've got for you in this one. Straight to the point, all stuff and no fluff. We talked about a bunch today. Feel free to discuss anything we talked about in the comments below. If you like this video, leave a like. If you didn't like this video, leave a like. Hit that subscribe button. Check out my other videos. Don't tempt fate. Save your state.